Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Valeria and this is the Off-Road Range. Right away, without long introductions, you can see how I paint the walls of my house. The quality of the filming is terrifying, but don't rush to leave this video, because today I will talk about my finances for 4 months, from March to June. And they're quite interesting, because I painted the walls 2 months ago, and my story about finances is a spoiler for what the next videos will be about. First, a few words about painting. I couldn't hire people because painting my house would have cost me over $5,000. In addition, it would be a team of 4 people, where one person would paint and the rest would pretend to control the process. That is, in fact, they wouldn't do anything, but I would pay everyone. Moreover, I think that 90% of painters have never painted a ceiling at such an angle, which means that hiring people doesn't guarantee the desired result, but most likely they wouldn't admit their mistakes. So I bought white impregnation, rented a spray gun and a vacuum cleaner, and bought used scaffolding. I invited a friend to supervise my stay at heights, because this is dangerous work and it requires certain safety precautions. She also took video of me at altitude. Shooting in a cloud of paint is very difficult. The focus constantly jumps. There is not enough light for shooting because all the light is directed at the walls to illuminate the painting area. And a moving person in a cloud of paint is generally blurry and fuzzy. And in general, tiny particles of paint fall on the phone, which create a film on the camera. Do-it-yourself painting with a spray gun is so difficult that I would even call this video How Not to Paint. But there were other significant factors that influenced the result more than my lack of experience. However, it was so unexpected for me that I became very nervous and angry. I had no idea that it was so difficult, and now I clearly understand why professional painters charge so much money for their work. I watched videos about how to paint, I read recommendations in technology, but in practice, this is a completely different situation. When I started painting, I forgot about all the painting rules that I had read or watched. At first I did at random. I jacked my hands, I painted unevenly, and in general, I made all possible mistakes. I was especially angry when I touched freshly painted surfaces with my back, hands or tools, and I spoiled walls. Therefore, rule number 1 is that during any difficult work, you shouldn't give in to emotions. In addition, the rented tools turned out to be of terrible quality. It leaked, it painted unevenly, and it was interrupted. This affected the quality of painting and the amount of acid paint for the worse. Moreover, initially there was paint of a different color in the tank, and I had to wash it. This is why in earlier videos I said that for important work it is better to buy your own tool. This way you will know exactly its quality, what it was used for, and what the responsibility for maintenance is. An under-maintained or low-quality tool can ruin the result despite all your efforts, and the likelihood of this is very high. Before painting, practice on a necessary piece. Try to paint with high quality. Understand how the tool works and follow the instructions and technology. In addition, despite the fact that I chose an impregnation that wouldn't paint but would absorb as much as possible into the walls and protect them from rot, mold and woodworms, in fact, it turned out to be acrylic paint. Firstly, acrylic paint is much more dangerous for resin and ice. Whilst impregnation is water-based, it is as safe as possible for health, and it is intended for indoor use and not for painting outdoors. Secondly, acrylic paint protects wood much worse from various woodworms. And thirdly, it looks completely different visually. It fits differently on the walls and it remains on the surface, not absorbed. And most importantly, the impregnation doesn't reflect. and it is easy to shoot against such a wall because there are no problems with glare from the wall in the background. But I discovered this only during the painting process, when I saw how it lays down and looks. By this point, it was too late to change anything. And this factor didn't depend on me, since everywhere it was said that it was impregnation, and on the packaging it was also written that it was impregnation. How much did it cost me to paint, as well as the electrical that I showed in the last video, and in general, other purchases for the entire spring and June? Every month, about $1,800 always goes by default to pay off the loan, land rent, and household needs. The remaining expenses nowadays, by 90%, are made up of purchases to develop the off-road range. Most of the electrical expenses were in March. Equipment for internal electrical systems, cables, socket boxes, semi-automatic devices, relays, cost around $1,700. The electrician's work cost $650. Equipment for external electrical equipment, grounding fittings, bricks, sand cost $270. Heating radiators cost $200. Warm floors $85. In April, I bought a boiler and a small stove, which were also installed and connected in accordance with safety requirements. After connecting the electricity and achieving a stable temperature in the house, I began painting. White impregnation cost me $470. Used scaffolding cost $290. Tool rental cost $80. Also, in April, I bought a battery sprayer and several bottles of acaricide to treat the area against ticks, waterflies, mosquitoes, and other insects. I will show you why the latter cost me $0 in the following videos. In May, I was able to hang a few indoor and outdoor lights, and it was time for chainsaw and grass cutter maintenance. In addition, in the spring I carried out a technical inspection of the car. After constant loads and driving with a trailer and materials on a snowy and washed out road, which in general can hardly be called a road since it is a real off-road, I had to service the suspension. So far I have changed a few bearings, but its condition is now so sad that I am not sure that I will be able to drive it next winter. It requires serious repairs. In June, half of the cost for the land came from the purchase of a 40-foot container, but this will still require expenses, and I will show all the details later. I also made a lot of purchases in order to finally start cleaning the well and creating conditions for supplying water. For more than a year that I have been living here, I have been going to collect water in bottles from a source in another village. And also a huge purchase was the laminate flooring, which I hope to install within a few months. As for income, what brought me the most was my work on the laptop and trading. As far as possible, I try to invest money in those areas that will fully provide me with remote income. However, trading is about unstable profits, and you need to understand the market in order to know what income to expect and how not to go into the negative. Therefore, in parallel, I study in the field of decentralized finance when time allows me. And in the nearest future, I will post my schedule for the spring and summer months. The income from the off-road range is also still unstable and unpredictable because the vegetation is very lush, and I haven't yet taken control of what to grow. However, the land is quite fertile, and I make the most of the gifts that nature gives me. Also, thanks to some accumulation of funds and a strong drop in the rate of the Monero cryptocurrency, I was able to repay 25% of the debt to the subscriber. The delisting of this important coin from all major exchanges greatly affected not only its price, but also the situation throughout the world. This is a struggle for security, privacy, and the centralization of power. However, it helped me with paying off my debt. Anyway, I support this coin regardless of the situation. I would like to get back to the painting results. White paint makes the house much lighter and more spacious. White light reflects the sun rays, adding light and expanding the space. This is one of the most successful color schemes, and it will suit different types of interior. In addition, white color suits me for shooting because it doesn't distort the color balance when adjusting the light. But white paint will also perfectly show the quality of the wood used. And if when buying, cheap lining will initially look high quality, then after painting and several months of final drying of the house, you will see all the shortcomings: cracked boards, knots, diversions of seams, relief due to improper processing, and so on. Fortunately, the quality of my lining is satisfactory. Since this was my first painting in my life, and unforeseen factors made things worse, there are a lot of shortcomings. There is a lot of uneven painting. Somewhere there are empty bright places, somewhere there are dried out drops of paint that flowed down the wall. It is necessary to correct where there are smudges, drops, or uneven coloring. It is necessary to smooth out the relief stripes. And after that, a lot needs to be repainted. The paper that protected sockets, switches, window sills, and windows came off in many places and didn't allow the walls to be painted. Some newspapers got wet and imprinted on the windows and walls, and it is very difficult to remove these marks. Therefore, despite the fact that according to the recommendations 12 hours is enough for drying, due to the uneven coating and dripping paint, I left the house to dry for 36 hours. Before this, even before painting, I closed all the windows and didn't open them at all. And after painting, I turned on 2 fans and all the convectors, despite the fact that the house was already warm. Did I spoil the walls? Yes. No customer would accept such work if I painted to order. And even if the result was 10 times better, it would still be of low quality. If a real professional painted, the paint consumption would be 3 times less, and the quality would be 100 times higher. But as I said before, there are many unforeseen factors, such as difficult painting angle, poor quality tools, wrong painting materials, and irresponsible attitude of workers. Also, never paint walls in winter, spring, or fall if you do it yourself. Write your honest review about how you rate the quality of the painting. Perhaps you want to hear some more information. I will be glad to share with you. In the next videos, I'll start working on the land, so don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to watch the video next Thursday. It was Valeria, the Off-Road Ranch. I wish you all the best and see you soon.